Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Honda Civic. But more specifically, this is the Sport trim level. It's even the hatchback variant, and it's in my favorite color on the 11th generation of the Civic, named Solar Silver Metallic. There really is a lot of metallic flake in the paint, especially on a sunny day like today. But while this is one of the coolest hatchback and sedan vehicles that you can currently buy, it's not perfect, so today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of the current generation Honda Civic to help you guys at home decide if it might be worth your time and money, or if you should leave it at the lot and look at the other compact class of vehicle competition, like the Mazda CX-30, the Toyota Corolla, and the Subaru Impreza. So today you can expect to see a walk around. All the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts, and huge thanks to the Larry H. Miller in Boise, Idaho for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested because they sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, and with that said, let's dive right into this review. And thank you so much for watching car videos on YouTube today, but if you get anything out of this video, you like my style, or you like the Honda Civic, please be so kind to consider liking my video. Basically, that lets me know to make more stuff like this, it helps the video get shared, and it helps you by having the YouTube choose to show you more stuff just like this. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Honda, or the Honda Civic, there's a few things that you should probably know. Honda is a Japanese automaker. They're one of the biggest, they're one of the best. They're known for building safe, affordable, and reliable passenger vehicles. But that wasn't always the case. They were founded in the middle of the 1940s. Originally, they were pumping out two-stroke engines for their motorsport division, and while they still make a lot of motorsports, they started to make cars just a couple years later, and then shortly after that, at the end of the 1950s, they said, you know what, guys? World War II ended a while ago. Let's start selling our cars to the United States market. And ever since then, Honda has been growing even faster. They've been growing even bigger. And the Honda Civic, this thing was born in 1972. It's older than probably half of you guys watching my video. And while the Civic has been a very popular vehicle, selling over 20 million units globally and selling over 300,000 units most model years in the United States market where I am, it continues to be a very popular vehicle. This one specifically was assembled in the United States, although these are assembled all over the world and for the United States market in the US, Canada, and Japan. And this one, starting at about $27,000 because it's the hatchback, is about a $3,000 price premium over the sedan. But you do get a lot of good features for this being about $27,000. And after destination, after delivery, it is a little bit over $28,000 before the Larry H. Miller discount for referencing my video. Before that price, what do you get? You get a 5-star crash test rated vehicle, which is also a top safety pick, so not only does it hold up really well in crashes, protecting what matters most, which is you and your passengers, but also has a lot of tech to help you avoid accidents. So because this is a top safety pick, it has really bright LED headlights, it has lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, and adaptive cruise control. And just by having those features don't necessarily mean that they're competent, especially compared to what this competes against. But I do have to say that this current generation of Honda Civic actually has really good safety features and they work surprisingly well. But beyond that, you do have a few other creature comforts. You don't have a sunroof or leather seats or anything like that, but the seats do seem to be pretty comfortable. You have wireless Android and Apple CarPlay. You have a leather wrapped wheel. You have a ginormous hatchback, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, and then a lot of other little things that you'll see throughout this video. And while I am going to be subjective for just a second, I do have to say that overall, in my opinion, this is a really good looking vehicle, especially on the Sport trim level, which has these black wheels and the silver solar paint. I just think it looks like a really nice combination. But it is taking my brain just a little bit of time to get used to the fact that this is currently what the Honda Civic is. It's no longer a small, bubbly looking car, what I'm used to seeing, and it's now a hatchback. It now is bigger than what the Accord used to be. This is the new Civic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that we're sometimes used to what we're familiar with, which is what these used to look like 15, 20 years ago. But honestly, it is very useful, it is very practical, and something very interesting is that you can currently, for 2025, you can buy 4 different engines in this. You can either get the 2-liter naturally aspirated like this that makes 150 horsepower. You can get the hybrid that makes 200 horsepower because it has 2 electric motors tied to this 2-liter engine. You can also get a 1.5-liter turbo, which is what the Civic Si is, or you can get the big boy 2-liter turbo, which is what the Type R is. So you can get your Honda Civic with 4 different engines, 4 different powertrains, and anywhere from about 150 horsepower to 315. So there really is a lot of variety. And again, why over 300,000 people buy these every year? Because you can kind of spec them however you want. And I think Honda has really done well, giving the people a lot of options. And while this is a lighter weight compact car, it's actually pretty stable at highway and interstate speeds, and it fits really conveniently in the average size parking spot, especially this hatchback, which while it does have more cargo capacity than the sedan, as I'll show you in just a minute, it also is about 4 inches shorter. So overall, this is about 14.9 feet long, but the wheelbase is almost 9 feet, so it's very planted, very stable on the road. And then it's about 5.9 feet wide, roughly 4.5 feet tall. It weighs anywhere from 29 to 3,200 pounds. It really just depends on how it's spec'd, if it's a hybrid, if it's the Type R. There's so many different options, but it's only about a 300-pound variance. This is not rated to tow, while I'm sure some people do tow in their Honda Civic, and then has a pretty substantial 850-pound payload capacity, roughly 5 inches of ground clearance. Depending on powertrain, it has a 3.4 to a 4.3 final axle ratio, and it can do a full circle in about 38 feet. And then the last couple things to mention here is the gas door is on the driver's side, which I prefer out of convenience. When you lock the vehicle, the gas door even locks, so you don't have to worry about the bums trying to siphon any of your 12.4 gallons of gas. But if you do have the hybrid, your gas tank is a little bit smaller. It's only going to be about 10.6 gallons. So on this non-hybrid, your max road trip and range, getting about 30 in town, about 38 on the highway, is going to be about 471 miles, which is actually pretty substantial for that small of a tank. And then this is your really nice 18-inch sport black wheel wrapped in a Goodyear tire. It is a 235 40 18. I think it looks fantastic. Has about 930 seconds of tread. And then this is your key. You have lock, unlock, remote start even on the sport trim level. No power lift gate, but you can still unlock it right there in the hatch. And then panic button. But honestly, just leave that in your pocket because you do have proximity key features right here to lock and unlock the vehicle, and they seem to work pretty quickly. The driver's side door panel of the Honda Civic is actually really substantial, kind of like the bigger siblings in the Honda lineup. The door panel opens really large. You can see that the window is absolutely huge, so you have fantastic visibility. And then the door panels, for this being about a $28,000 vehicle, they're all black. There are a few nicer accents. You do have just a cloth armrest right there, but overall, it's about what you'd expect. You have an unnamed speaker. The speaker sounds fairly decently, but you even have auto roll down windows for the first two, the front, and they also even auto roll up, which is pretty cool. And then down here, the all-weather mats are not yet installed, but you even have rubberized aluminum brake and gas pedal, and then a dead pedal right there. Traction control, dashboard lighting, ventilation, lighting stock, tilt and telescoping wheel. It's leather wrapped, has paddle shifters on the back for the CVT, and then a cloth seat, which is manually adjusted, which I am totally fine with. I'm fine not having powered everything. And then the bolstering is actually pretty good. You even have an LED light on the roof liner. And then sitting inside here is pretty cool. You guys saw the Honda H greeting me when I fired this vehicle up with the push button start. It's a fully digital display for both screens. The horn, it's high pitched. This vehicle, the horn is suited to it, but some of the bigger Hondas have the same horn, which is kind of funny. And then sitting inside here, I actually have pretty good comfort. The belt line of the vehicle though is kind of tall, even though I still have big windows, good visibility. I do feel like I sit kind of low in this, and I could always crank the seat up with the handle on the side. But overall, even with the wheel pushed all the way into the dashboard, it's just nice. The gauges look good. There's not really a whole lot to talk about on the screen. Even when you push menu, you really don't get anything very special or fancy. Most of what you're going to want is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but you do have vents. We can turn those down. You have two USB Type-C style, 180-watt outlet, and then you have a good storage tray right here. The backup camera is pretty decent. The trajectory lines do move, which I appreciate. A couple cup holders, your drive modes. You even have sport mode on this one, normal, and then econ. No winter or slippery or anything else though, because this is just a front-wheel drive car. And then a cloth armrest with some good Hobby Lobby stitching, and then a lifty tray, which has two positions. I'm going to move it up front just for the heck of it. And then up here, we don't have anything really to talk about. We do have some LED lights, and on the vanity mirror, ooh, there's no light right there. Honda's skimping out on us. But at least it slides, which is more of an upscale feature. With that said, let's turn it off and I'll hop in the back. And I left the driver's seat a little bit further back than I normally would, because a lot of you guys probably are taller than me. I'm only 5'11", but the door panel back here, it opens up pretty decently. I would hope for a little bit more, but honestly, that's about what you can expect on this classic vehicle. The roof line, though, is noticeably low. It's pretty low on my chest at only about 4.5 feet. The window takes up most of its space by the Maroni sticker, but you still have pretty good visibility. Some other vehicles, like some of the Mazdas, all you can basically fit is the Maroni sticker. And then the door panel, it's all the same type of materials. I think that's okay, because if you have kids, if you have pets back here, you're not gonna have to worry about those getting scuffed up. They're gonna hold up pretty well. But I do want to know, Do the back seats recline? Oh man, I don't think they do. But anyways, ducking my head, jumping into this dark tunnel of a back seat. And holy cow, for a compact, I actually have a lot of room. I do wish I had some vents. I think if you're gonna have children, grandma, grandpa, anyone in the back, you're gonna want some vents for them. No armrest either on this one. It doesn't look like the head bolster even moves either. But a 5'11" sitting behind my extended driver position, I only have about my finger's width, no extra room above my head. So it is a little bit tighter, but honestly, it's not bad. I could go across the country like this just fine. Probably I can even stretch out and slouch just a little bit. But with that said, let me hop out and I'll show you the hatch. The back of the Honda Civic hatch actually looks pretty good. It's kind of interesting, but kind of fun. You even have a wiper blade on this one. You can see the privacy shade through the glass and how you can pull it and cover your stuff better. Sorry, there's a little bit of reflection on the glass, but it is pretty cool how this whole system works. And then back here, even though this is only 4 inches shorter than the sedan, it actually has 10 more cubic feet of cargo capacity when we use the non-power liftgate to lift up the hatch. Keep in mind, because of the shape of this vehicle, the hatch does lift very high, probably a good 3 feet above the roofline. So keep that in mind. You have to be able to reach, and you don't want to hit the ceiling on anything, and then you only have an incandescent light back there. But this is about 24.5 cubic feet of room, and it's very usable. You can tell that most of the room is not above the headrests, which is kind of funny that those headrests don't come up either. But you can basically load this thing full and hardly take up any of your visibility, and hardly have to worry about things toppling over to the front. You even have a temporary spare tire under here for this non-hybrid. And then when you fold down the seats, you have about 46 cubic feet of room, which is also pretty darn decent for this class of vehicle. And then a handle on each side to grab it and to throw it down. It is a little bit on the heavier side though, just because it is such a big hatch. Coming around to the passenger side, and I think you guys can really see the roof line and where the hatch hinges. This looks like a fastback design. This is really cool, the slope of the roof. Personally, if I was going to buy one of these, I would only consider a hatchback, but that's also just my preference. There's nothing wrong with the sedan. Door panel opens up huge, so big in fact you almost have to be worried that the kids don't throw it open and hit the car next to you. Door panel, everything looks about the same. No greeting on the door sill. The mats again not yet installed. My backpack doesn't seem to notice though. It's having a good time in the new Civic. And then non-locking, and not very big back here, but you do have ventilation. You don't have any extra storage on the side of the tunnel or above it, but that's okay. With that said, let's come around to the front. I'll pop the hood and I'll show you the very mechanical 2-liter naturally aspirated little 4-cylinder engine. Under the hood of the least powerful Honda Civic that you can currently buy, and one that's going to be a very popular seller, is the 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. This one does make about 150 horsepower at 6,500 RPM and 133 twisty pounds of torque at about 4,500 RPM. So you do have to rev it out a little bit, and under heavy acceleration, the CVT, which this is connected to, does seem like it wants to fake shift instead of holding the gear, which might make it go a little bit faster, but would be a totally different experience. Honestly, the transmission on this feels totally fine. I don't have any initial issues with it just driving it around for the day, but because this is a small, naturally aspirated front-wheel drive vehicle, the vehicle is transversely mounted, so the serpentine belt and the alternator are right down there on the side. So you are probably going to have to take off, I'd imagine, that mount to the chassis to take care of the serpentine belt. Sorry guys, the alternator's right there. I was looking through my camera and not looking at reality. Anyways, the intake manifold is back there. The exhaust manifold is really cool how it's integrated off the head. And then you have the catalytic converter. So on this vehicle, you don't have to worry about the bums trying to siphon or steal your cats or your gas, which is pretty cool. This one is rated for 0W20 oil, so fairly thin, but not as thin as some other vehicles. And then you can see your reservoirs on the periphery, your battery, your fuse box, your air filter right there, and then it goes right into the intake manifold. Honestly, this is very mechanical looking. You can see the transmission where it's connected down there. And this really looks pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So I don't really have any gripes. With that said, let's drop the hood, take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the naturally aspirated Honda Civic. Let's get up to speed and prepare to merge. The engine, it's pretty loud. It doesn't necessarily sound like any of the sound is piped in. But although you hear a lot of engine noise, it's really not advancing down the road nearly as quickly as the double the horsepower Type R would be. Anyways, visibility is really good in the Civic. The mirrors are big enough to see everything down the side, but also these windows are just fantastic. And then because this overall vehicle is only about 15 feet long, you can see right down the center with the rear view mirror. I can definitely feel all the ruts and the bumps in the road. These all-season tires seem to be adequate for absorbing impact, but you can feel it a little bit more. And then merging with just me in the vehicle, not going uphill or anything, even at about 4,000 feet of elevation equivalent, it's really smooth, it's really comfortable, and I don't really have any problems driving this. The brakes seem to kick in right away. There's not like a really hard grab, they just seem to be fairly gradual. And then the backpack's having a good time. These seats are fairly well bolstered for being cloth. I do think that they are overly comfortable, but without going on a road trip or really spending a full day with this vehicle, a long day just driving, I don't really know how they're gonna do, so ask an owner. The sound system in this, for being a lower trim level, it's okay. It's not fantastic, but it's about what you pay for well under $30,000. You really don't have a whole lot you can complain about on the interior of the Honda Civic. And anyways, guys, I'm having a pretty good time with this. I don't really have anything to complain. It's an honest car. It's a good car. And there's nothing that it does incredibly well or that necessarily stands out well beyond the competition, and nothing that really, is worse than the rest. But let's pretend I have to pass a semi going about 68 miles an hour. How does it do? Yeah, it doesn't accelerate as hard as some of the competition, but for just cruising around, if you're getting up to speed casually and not in an emergency mode having to pass someone, it does a pretty good job. Anyways, guys, let me get to the private road and we will do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the Honda Civic. I'm in sport mode, traction is off, but density altitude is about 4,000 feet. So this naturally aspirated engine is down on power 12 to 15%. We're gonna do a little bit of a brake rev and see what it can do. It is fake shifting, and true 0 to 60 came in at 9.8 seconds. My final thoughts of the 2025 Honda Civic Sport hatchback is honestly, I think it's a really good looking vehicle. Again, the lines, the angles, the aggressiveness of this, the front aerodynamics, everything is so much different than the Honda Civic that I have in my mind. This should be about a foot shorter, twice as bubbly, and have a much different personality. But honestly, this one being a top safety pick, having more functional cargo capacity than a lot of the competition, there's a lot of reasons to really like this car, especially with the fact that before your discount, it's only $28,000, and you get huge black 18-inch wheels. You get all the safety features as standard, LED headlights, so you don't even have to worry about upgrading some out-of-style, out-of-date halogens. Even has black side mirror caps. This is a pretty cool car. I think it's a really good value, and it's going to be interesting to see if the powertrains change for the new generation. If the hatchback is no longer offered with the Space Model engine, or if only the hybrid will be offered, as the website is currently kind of suggesting as 2026 information is starting to come out. And I will have that video out for you guys soon, a few of the new generation, or the new model year videos anyways. But this is a cool car. I like it a lot. I'm not surprised why over 300,000 people buy it. And doing under a 10-second 0 to 60, or almost a second and a half faster than the HRV that I did just recently. This is actually pretty impressive. I like it a lot, but I want to know your guys' thoughts, your opinions. Would you buy one of these? Would you lease it? Would you leave it at the lot? What would you do with the 11th generation Honda Civic? Comment below. Like this video if you got anything out of it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out more of my videos, and check out the Larry H. Miller if you're interested in the Honda. They are fantastic, and I really like working with them. With that said, I wish you guys the best. Hope you take care, and until next time, see ya.